What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Snowy little day in New Jersey here. Surprised my internet is stable. Maybe it just needs the calmness of the snow, means the drones aren't out sucking the life from my house. I don't know. I'm tired, but, that's because I'm an idiot and stayed up and watched Colorado Sharks last night. Not for lack of trying for that top line. They didn't do much, but they had a 91% expected goal share, as Cliffy mentioned to me this morning. Pittsburgh won. You needed, I think, to win. I did really like them. I was always going to spend up for Colorado or Edmonton, so that's just the way single entry life goes sometimes. We do have a couple shout outs. I saw on Twitter our residence Canucks fan, Nick. He took second in the hip check. I always forget what tournaments these are. I'm an idiot. But
yeah, I'm not sure which one it was either.
Yeah, he had Pittsburgh 1 and some other guys. There it is. Cliffy has it.
This one is DM4K8 that had the 2,500 takedown last night. He did use Edmonton 1. Valerie Nichushkin had Luke Hughes. I think Luke Hughes was the big one. Luke Hughes at single digit ownership in what was a good spot and something that we talked about. Luke Hughes had a great game, and I think he actually had, was it a goal or an assist taken off the board as well? Like, it could have been an even better night. So congrats to him. Congrats to everybody that did well last night. I didn't do well. I power play stack New Jersey. It never fails. I slandered Teuvo Teravainen in our Discord about a week ago, and I think he has 8 points in 3 games since. And then I slandered Elvis Merzlikins on our show yesterday, and then he goes and has the best game in 3.5 years. His best game in 3.5 years. Anybody needs somebody slandered to turn their season around, just let me know. I can be bought off pretty easily.
Yeah, for the cheap price of a $299 super chat, Cliffy can enhance your lineup. No, I'm just kidding. That's just the way it goes. I didn't cash last night either. I kind of got a little screwed by the Colorado coach because I had a late stack of McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar, and then he was just like, I had a weird feeling Bednar was going to do that because he does that sometimes where it's just like, you know what, Mikko, go fuck off to the second line. And he puts Lehkonen and Nichushkin up on the top line. Yeah, I did have Nashville 3 with them. I did have Seattle 3 with them. And I had Linus Ullmark, who had an overtime win with an assist on the overtime goal. So, I was really close to the cash. If one of those 91% expected goal share shots went in, I would have cashed. But that's just the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you run into Elvis Merzlikins. Sometimes you run into bad coaching. Sometimes you just make bad lineups. But congrats to our winners last night. We're back at it tonight. You can't hit the nuts if you don't play. Just the way it goes. Interesting little 7-gamer here. I like these size slates. I don't particularly love this slate because you have super expensive Toronto in a good spot. You have super expensive Florida in a good spot. You have Dallas, who has 38 game time decisions against my idiotic Rangers. And then you have Colorado, obviously, back-to-back on the road in probably the best power play spot of the night. So, there are lots of good spots. There's just lots of good expensive spots. I guess that's good. It'll spread out ownership, and you can try to find an edge somewhere. But you like this slate? I don't particularly love this slate.
I do like it, just because there are a handful of super expensive spots, I mean, we'll get to Colorado later. Maybe like no team is ever a must play, especially if, like literally unless it's like a showdown slate. So Colorado's not a must play. I would say like they're obviously considering their price and considering the matchup, like it's an excellent spot, but there are a lot of good spots on this slate besides Florida, besides Toronto, besides Colorado. Like I do think there is going to be some low owned lines that I have a lot of interest in. So I kind of like the 7-gamer.
Yeah, and really I was just trying to buy some time because for some reason I logged into Stochastic right before the show, went to go into Top Stacks, they logged me out. Just like DraftKings does all the time. Like, I don't know if anyone else has these issues. Like, I log into DraftKings like 3 minutes prior. I go get like a glass of water and come back and sit down and I'm logged out. I don't know if anyone else has these problems, but just me. Yeah. Is Quick Party here because not only did he teach me how to use copy and paste, he also graciously told me that the less than and greater than symbols are which way do they go. I messed that up this morning. I'm having a great day, but let's get into this slate. Just wanted to say thank you all for being here, all 128 of you special human beings. Thanks for hanging out with us on this lovely Friday afternoon before Christmas next week. If you do want to go premium or you want to get your special someone a Stochastic premium membership, you can click the link in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15. That will get you 15% off your first month or week of any subscription. I'm sure you can use that code to find like some NFL membership for $69 or something like that. Give it to your wife. You know what I mean? Great Christmas present. Let's get into this slate. Toronto Maple Leafs, 3.3 total. Heading into Buffalo, the Sabres have a 2.7. No one talking about how awful the Sabres are because everyone's talking about how awful the Rangers are. But arguably, the Sabres have been in a worse rut than the Rangers. New York's teams just suck right now. But anyway, Leafs called up Matt Murray. That Matt Murray. Where is Marty Jones? Bring back Marty Jones. This was the Marty Jones game we've been waiting for, but it is Matt Murray. He's not in the player pool on DraftKings anyway. Is he in the player pool in FanDuel? Who knows? Because I don't know my password, and I haven't logged in on FanDuel in 3 years. But Toronto going Matthews, Nylander, Marner. Again, they're 25,300. Second line of Tavares, Nyes, Pacioretty, McMahon, Domi, Robertson as the third line. Buffalo going Thompson, Tuck, Zucker, Cousins, Peterka, Quinn, Kulich, Benson, Krebs. I think Ryan McLeod is a game time decision. He would probably just slide onto that third line. Not that I'm really itching to play Buffalo 3 here on this slate. The big question is what to do with Toronto 1, right? And I cannot stop thinking about how Cliffy was kind of like, yeah, you're just paying an extra $2,000 for the same expected numbers. Now, this is a little bit of a different matchup here. Buffalo has just been bad. Goaltending's been bad. Penalty kill's been bad. 5-on-5, they've been bad. I just don't know if I want to spend $25,300 though, especially when you have a Colorado line that's like $5,000 cheaper. And even if you took Lehkonen off and added in another power play guy, you aren't even getting up to that price. The one thing I would say is that they're coming in as a line at 5.8% projected, and that's a lot of positive leverage for this matchup. Like at that ownership, I don't mind a Matthews one-off. I know he'll come in higher owned than the other two, but like even a 12 to 15% Matthews on this slate in this matchup is a spicy meatball. Like I know generally I preach that if Matthews has a great game, someone else is coming along for the ride, but like that ride is really expensive and I don't want to pay for that Uber. So like I'm just going to one-off Matthews, I think, if I'm going to play Toronto 1 here. Toronto 2 is a bit interesting because if they do see a fair bit of that Cousins, Peterka, Quinn line, that line's been atrocious defensively. And Tavares and Pacioretty have been low key. I say low key because it's more like slow key, but they have been very, very good offensively. Throw Nyes into that mix, like it'll be fine. Maybe they're a touch worse than they would with Nylander, but like Tavares, Nyes, Pacioretty, 14-7 with 4% projected ownership going up against the middle six of Buffalo here. I know I don't like stacking these teams without their superstars like the Edmontons, the Torontos, the Colorados, but like this would be a line I would go to at 14,700 with barely any negative leverage against the middle six of a reeling team. So I do like Toronto 1. They're just priced out for me in single entry. I'm fine with the Matthews one-off. Fine with the Nylander one-off. Marner, like if Marner was in one of those stretches where he was shooting the puck a lot more, I'd be okay with it. But he's kind of in his phase where he needs to hit like the 3 assist bonus to really pay off. So I'd rather one off the other guys. Toronto 2 for me. Buffalo, oh man, because like Matt Murray hasn't started a game in the NHL probably for almost 3 years.
It's pretty much 2 years.
Yeah, so like I don't know what to expect. Like I don't mind Thompson, Tuck, Zucker, but like 18,600, they're priced in a range where like I'm not super comfortable with them because you have Minnesota 1 at 19K, you have Colorado 2 at 19K. You know what I mean? You have Colorado 1, even not that much more at 20,200. So like they're really hard to prioritize. They only have a 6.1% top 2 stack. All the lines I mentioned just now, have higher top 2 stacks. There's even a couple lines like that are cheaper that I prefer. Like we'll talk about Detroit 1. We'll talk about Anaheim 1 later. They're just kind of priced in a weird range that I don't really want to prioritize them. So this is a Toronto 1, Toronto 2 game for me. I'm fine with Buffalo 2 as a filler. I just worry that they're just going to get controlled by the Tavares Pacioretty line.
Yeah, Rasmus Dahlin being back, I think matters quite a bit. Not that he's like an exceptional defensive defenseman or whatever, but it just gets a shitty player out of the lineup. Like
it gets people back to where they belong.
Yeah, exactly. That matters. Like Dahlin and Bowen Byram have been a pretty good defense pair this season. 225 minutes together, 5-on-5. 2 expected goals against per 60, 1.1 actual goals against per 60 minutes. They've been pretty much been able to dominate the play. And like most of the slide from Buffalo, Dahlin was out. Like he was there at the start of it. But the problem, like they lost 3 games in a row. And then in the 4th game, Dahlin got hurt. The 3 games that they lost, 1-0, 4-3, 3-0, right? Like they scored 3 goals in 3 games. The problem wasn't necessarily the defense. It was the offense. And then in the 4th game, it was against Colorado. I think they were actually up like 4-1, and then Dahlin got hurt, and then Colorado scored 4 straight goals to win, or something like that. And then they've done what they've done since. Like the problem when Dahlin was in the lineup wasn't necessarily the defense, especially the top line, top pair, right? Like with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck on the ice, because they've had a rotating cast of wingers, but like them with Dahlin and Byram, like they've been pretty good defensively. So like, no, like I'm not saying Buffalo is going to be a good defensive team. I just don't think they're going to be like a bottom 3 defensive team as they've been for the last couple of weeks. I do think Dahlin coming back matters a lot. It's a cascading effect across the lineup. So like when I look at Toronto 1 and I see, 25K plus again, I agree with you. I think I would probably rather just one-off Austin Matthews than go play a full Toronto 1, because I'm going to be honest, when I look across the slate, there's aren't a ton of super cheap lines that I like here tonight. Like last night we liked was Los Angeles 3 was pretty cheap. Nashville 3 certainly was very cheap. Like there were cheap third lines that we like to pair with a Colorado or something like that. Tonight, I look across the slate. It's like, okay, maybe Anaheim. Like put your faith in Alex Killorn. Maybe one of the third or fourth lines from Utah going into Minnesota. I just don't see anything. Like, I don't know. Florida, maybe the third line from Florida, I think would be the best one that we could probably come up with. There's just not a lot that I would like to pair. Like, in that case, I'd have to go to Toronto 1 and then a bunch of one-offs, and I don't really like to do that. Like, listen, Toronto 1 in their small sample has been excellent. They've only played 35 minutes together, but 5.6 expected goals per 60 is just absolutely preposterous in any kind of sample. I just think they're still too expensive. So I have no problem. Somebody wants to play Toronto 1 and has a good third line that they want to play. I'm just not going to say no, because I think you can make an argument that Toronto 1 is the best line on the slate. At over half my salary, with Buffalo getting back their number one defenseman, I don't think it's necessarily a rush out. You got to play them. I think, again, like you, I'd prefer just one-offing Austin Matthews. We're waiting for him to break out. Like, Matthews is 40 shots in his last 10 games, but he's not started to fill the net yet. We're waiting for one of those 20 goals in 18 game stretches from him, and it's going to come eventually. So, obviously other guys will come along for the ride at that point, but I think I prefer a one-off Matthews than I do playing the entire line. On the Buffalo side, there hasn't been much of a sample with Jason Zucker and Tage Thompson, but in the sample that they do have, 3 expected goals, 4.6 actual goals. Like, they've been pretty good. Problem is, Tage is now the only guy on the top power play unit from that line. Like, Tuck and Zucker are both on the second power play unit, so they're split on the power play. I think I'd probably rather go to Buffalo 2 here. Cousins, Peterka, Quinn. Like we mentioned the last time that Buffalo was on the slate, like they had a sample, a couple of years ago, last year, where they were pretty good. Why they're so bad now after being pretty good together for 2 years, I literally have no idea. But they are being used as a, quote, second line. You do get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit, Quinn and Peterka. So they're getting reasonable minutes. Quinn, Peterka, Cousins and Peterka, probably around 17, 18 minutes. I think I like Buffalo too. I agree with you in general. It's both second lines in this game that I have the interest in. I don't think I have interest in either top line here.
Yeah, especially for 25,300 in this economy. Get the fuck out of here. Minnesota. Montreal Canadiens with a 2.7 total. Heading into Detroit, the Wings have a 3.3 total. The disrespect from the odds makers here, and then the disrespect from the sports bettors. They are betting up Detroit here. Montreal's total has gone down. Does anyone watch the Canadiens power play recently? They're disgusting with Line A and Lane Hudson. I think Lane Hudson is just as important as Patrick Line A. Arguable, but listen. Detroit 1 sucks. Or Detroit 1. Detroit. You don't even have to put in the 1. Detroit sucks. Here's what, I know Larkin, Raymond, and Tarasenko are the top line going. They'll see a fair bit of that Suzuki line. They just haven't been great defensively, which isn't a shock because Tarasenko is a black hole defensively. Now, we did talk about them on the other slate, talking about how Tarasenko is a pretty good playmaker. I know it's a short-ish sample at 80 minutes. They're just low event offensively, and that does worry me, despite Montreal just being a bag of ass defensively. Montreal's going to have to get there on the power play. I have more faith in Detroit has to get there on the power play. Montreal, I have more faith in getting there at 5-on-5. I don't particularly love Detroit 1. I think you can go to Larkin, Raymond. Raymond's having a great season on a terrible team. So I don't know what kind of noise that is, whether, because people have to score on bad teams. You just don't know if he's actually having a really good season or he just looks really good because Detroit sucks. The Cop Kane DeBrincat line is giving me an aneurysm because they are wildly high event. They're going to get middle six matchups against the Habs, which is what you want to see. Like, as good as Line A is on the power play, his 5-on-5 line is one of the worst in the league defensively. The Dvorak, Gallagher, Anderson line has been respectable from a Canadien's definition. I just don't want to play a cop line, but like they have like they are at least creating. I guess that's something. They're on the second unit. Cop's not on any unit. Like, I hate these power play units. And the only reason I'm considering Detroit here is because maybe I'm an idiot and Vegas has been pumping their total and bettors have been betting up Detroit. I just don't see it. I prefer the Montreal side here, and there's a lot less ownership on Montreal. Detroit 1 is coming in at 17.6% projected. That's bonkers. Montreal 1's coming in at 2.3% projected. Detroit 2 is 11% projected. Montreal 2 is 0.3% projected. Now, I am not stacking Montreal 2. They are atrocious at 5-on-5. I do like a line A one-off here just from the fact that Detroit's penalty kill sucks, and line A, I don't want to like put line A up on a pedestal, but like when you look at shots from the slot, like wrist shots, he has one of the best 3 in the league. I like a line A one-off here. I think Montreal 1 is fine here because they're fully correlated, and they're coming in at 5th of the ownership as Detroit 1. They're 16,300. They haven't been great compared to how they were last year, but they're going to get opportunities on the power play. So, like, if you want to play Detroit here tonight, go ahead. Like, you will not see chalk Detroit in my lineup, despite them in a really, really good matchup. I just don't like these line combinations. I don't like the power play units. I prefer the Montreal side. I think, throwing Line A as a one-off or throwing him into a power play stack, I think just going Line A Hudson is something that I'm going to consider tonight. I prefer the Montreal side. This game has me fired up. It's going to end 1-0 in a shootout.
I'm not really in on Detroit here. I'm going to try to explain why without really mentioning Montreal all that much. One, like that Detroit top line, like as you mentioned, I showed on the screen, 17.6% ownership. Like that is just that's just unreal. And if you look in that price range, the mid price range, let's call it like between 13 and 17K. It's another one of those nights where they're not at the bottom of the range for me. There are lines that I like a lot less than them, even factoring in that, ownership that could push 20%. But there are a handful of lines in that price range that I do like better. Now, they don't have the similar top 2 stack, but they also have like a fraction of the ownership. Like you mentioned Montreal 1. Montreal 1's only $800 more expensive. Now, Detroit's top line has 2x, a little over 2x, the top stack with over 7x the ownership, right? I just feel like it's just way, way too much ownership for a Detroit line that honestly has not been that good. Like they're up to 80 minutes. That top line with Tarasenko there is up to 80 minutes together. 49 shot attempts, 1.6 expected goals, 2.2 actual goals per 60 minutes. And like with Alex Carrier being added to the Montreal lineup, not that I think Carrier is like a great defenseman or anything, but he's a good third pair right-hand shot that they didn't really have. And that just makes them a little bit better defensively. On top of that, Simon Edvinsson is out for Detroit, right? Like one of the reasons why we didn't mind going to Detroit and one of the reasons why we didn't pick on them that much over the last month was that Edvinsson-Cedar pairing had been excellent together. But if you look at the season so far, when Moritz Seider has any defenseman as his partner except for Simon Edvinsson, expected goals against goes up 50%. Shots against go up 34%. Detroit is just much worse defensively with Seider on the ice. They are worse offensively with Seider on the ice without Edvinsson. So I just think there are a lot of reasons to not go to Detroit here. One, there's a ton of ownership. 2, Montreal is probably a little bit better with Alex Carrier in the lineup. 3, Detroit is certainly a lot worse. Not a lot worse. I don't want to overstate the impact of one player, but it's certainly should be noticeably worse without Simon Edmondson. Like, I'm just out on Detroit. Neither of the top 2 lines has really been creating much. The power play has gone cold. Like, they're only shooting, I think it's 10% over the last 15 games after a very hot start. Montreal takes a lot of penalties. That's where Detroit can kind of break through. Is like the top, the power play goes 1 for 4, 1 for 5, because Montreal is the most penalized team in the league over the last 31 days. They go 1 for 4, 1 for 5, or something like that. Maybe they get one at 5-on-5, get another one like with the empty net like they did the last game, and then you're fine. But I honestly just think they're coming in with way too much ownership, and there are just other lines in that price range, considering they're coming in at literal fractions of the ownership that I'd rather play. So I'm more interested in the Montreal side, especially with Edmondson out. Like, they are coming in with no ownership, 2.3%. They've been a lot better with Slafkovsky up there over the last few games. Now, it's too small of a sample to go on, but, over the entire season, that Montreal top line was still scoring 5.3 goals per 60 minutes. Now, they were shooting a very high shooting percentage, but this was a line that, Suzuki and Caulfield have typically had high shooting percentages for like 3 years now. So it's not that I expect them to be like a 7% shooting line. They can be like 11% or something like that. So they're going to be above average offensively. The matchup is a lot better without Edmondson in the lineup. I worry about stacking without Line A because it is a good power play matchup. And as you mentioned, the Montreal power play, just with Cole Hudson, 30% more shot attempts with Cole Hudson running the power play than with Mike Matheson. It has made a noticeable difference. But I do like Montreal won the best in this game. I guess you can go, if you need a super cheap stack to pair with Toronto, like you can go to Gallagher, Dvorak, and Anderson. Like, they get decent minutes. Gallagher does shoot the puck. 2-man of like Dvorak and Gallagher or something like that. It seems like Christian Dvorak's the new Michael Grabner. He gets a breakaway every 2 games, but he only scores like every 20 games. Kind of the way it goes. But Montreal 1 is by far my favorite line in this game.
Yeah, I guess like Montreal 3 isn't awful considering they're almost been priced and they're going to go up against the middle 6 of Detroit, which is just atrocious. And, being compared to Michael Grabner sucks, but like that dude missed the net on more breakaways than any other player in NHL history. I don't have the stats to back it up, but the eye test is there. He played for like 19 different teams and he had 8 breakaways a game and missed the net on all of them. But yeah, Sider without Evanson's kind of like Fox with Lindgren. We'll talk about that when we get there. St. Louis Blues. I'm a mess. St. Louis Blues with a 2.2 total. 2.2. Heading into Florida, the Panthers have a 3.4 total. That's a 2.2 total against Bob, who's had a bad season. I'm pretty much out on St. Louis. It's 2.2 total, but like Thomas Buchnevich Neighbors at 13.6 fully correlated. If they happen to get into your MME mix, that's fine. But like other than that, adios, amigo. And like Broberg is out. So, I mean, they still have puck movers. Don't get me wrong, but like they're all really old. And I like Broberg, but St. Louis won a couple percent in MME. Sure. Great, good, great, grand, wonderful. No yelling on the bus. This is a Florida game for me. Florida won. Barkov, Kachuk, Verhaeghe, fully correlated, 21,700, 27% top 2 stack, 13.8% projected ownership. I'm not really sure what goalie they're going to go to tonight, the Blues, because last night they played and they pulled Bennington halfway through the game after giving up 3 goals on 11 shots. And then Hofer came in and saved 7 of 7. And they both played around the same, so it could be either. It doesn't really matter. This is a spot I'm a lot more interested than Toronto 1, even though like Thomas Buchnevich Neighbors has been good. Like Barkov, Kachuk, Verhaeghe has been wildly good whenever they've been together. You're getting a $3,600 discount from Toronto 1. Florida's at home. Their Blues are back-to-back on the road. They have positive leverage. They're fully correlated. The Blues don't take a ton of penalties, but they have trouble killing them off. I do really, really like Florida 1. If I'm going to spend up tonight and full stacking, I'm going to be between, I think, Florida 1 and Colorado, some sort of Colorado. Florida 2 is interesting from the fact that Lundell and Luosterainen have been good together. You throw Reinhardt in there, they're only 14,500. They're going to avoid, the Thomas Buchnevich line for the most part. And then after that, it's just bad defensive lines for the Blues. So I don't mind Florida 2. The issue is they're coming in at 12.6% projected. At that point, I guess it's fine if you need a cheapish filler. They're not really a filler line, but if you need a cheaper second line to go with your, $17,000 Montreal 1 or whatever, that's fine. But at that point, I'm just going to start building around Florida 1 for 1% more of ownership. You know what I mean? So this is a Florida 1 game for me. I guess Cliffy did mention Florida 3 as something that could fit with Toronto. I would just be aware that Boquist could be out. And if he's out, they're going to go 11-7. So that just means heavier minutes for the top guys. So I do really like Florida 1 here.
Yeah, I'll start quickly on the St. Louis side. I don't even hate this matchup for St. Louis. Tkachuk and Barkov have been tremendous together whenever they have played together over the last couple of years. They've been much better offensively than they have defensively. They tend to push the pace quite a bit when they're on the ice. And when you push the pace, all it takes is one bouncing puck or, one missed pass. And then the other team's going the other way for a 2-on-1 or 3-on-2 or something. That St. Louis top line, 3 expected goals, 5.7 actual goals per 60 minutes, riding hot at 16.9% shooting, but they're creating so much quality and a reasonable amount of shots that if they shoot 11%, they're still well above 40% above average by scoring. This is a pretty good offensive line. I'm not going to be I'm going to be honest. I am not going to be playing St. Louis here tonight because if I do need a line under, in that 12 to 14K range, there are a couple that I've rated higher. But I honestly don't hate St. Louis 1 here tonight. If you're playing 20 lineups, especially 150, but even if you're playing 20 lineups, I do think you have to consider them. But yeah, this is a Florida game for me. Tkachuk and Barkov, limited sample over the last 2 years, but 85 minutes together over the last 2 years, 94 shot attempts, 4.9 expected goals, 4.2 actual goals, shooting under 10%. Imagine if this line was actually shooting 11 or 12%, it'd be they'd be honestly a power play every time they stepped on the ice. Fully correlated. They're fairly cheap at 21,700. Ownership is half the top 2 stack percentage. They're my number 2 line here tonight. I feel pretty good about playing them because there are a bunch of lines in that 11, 12K range that I don't mind playing here. I really like Florida 1. What I worry about is that Sam Bennett as a game time decision. I worry that Sam Bennett comes back and they just nuke the lines. They go back to something that they'd had before with Reinhardt on the top line and then Bennett and Tkachuk and on the second line, something like that. So something to just kind of watch out for in case Sam Bennett does play. But yeah, I really, really do like Florida here tonight, the top line. I would probably go to Florida 1 just because, like you said, St. Louis doesn't take a ton of penalties, but Florida's been drawing a lot of power play opportunities. So if they can get 3, if not 4 here tonight, we'll take 3 for sure. I think they can pretty reasonably go 1 for 3 here. So I want guys on the power play. I like that Florida top line. If you want to dig down to Florida 2 or Florida 3, I think that's fine. But it's easily Florida 1 from this game for me.
I mean, if Bennett's back, we'll know before lock. So it's not like this is a later locking game and you'll have time to at least react to the news. Could be it could have been an 8:30 p.m. start, and the only team after that you could swap to is the Ducks, and you're just screwed. But yeah, Carolina Hurricanes with a 3.2 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 2.8. Washington going Strome, Wilson, Mangiapane, McMichael, Dubois, Protas. Carolina going Aho, Jarvis, Robinson, Netris, Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi, Martinook, Stahl, Carrier. Now, Ovechkin traded with a regular contact jersey today. He is not coming back today. He might be back this weekend, so he should be back pretty soon. There is no ownership on this game projected. Like, the highest line we have projected is 1.8%, and that's not just Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi. They're not my favorite line in this game for a multitude of reasons, really just two reasons. One, Kotkaniemi sucks, and two, they'll see a fair bit of that McMichael, Dubois, Protas line, and they've legitimately been good defensively. So, like, I don't really like Netjes, Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi. I think if I'm going to go to a line on Carolina, it would be Aho, Jarvis, Robinson. One, they're coming in at 1.4% projected, and I would much rather play Carolina here than the Detroit one. We'll just throw that out there. Two, Strome and Wilson have good offensive numbers, but they're not very good defensively. You throw Mangiapane into that mix, don't imagine they get much better. The one thing that gives me a little pause is Aho, Jarvis with Robinson have been fairly low event, to the sense like they're creating, but the expected goals aren't great and the actual goals are good. So they're shooting a little bit hot and they're not creating a ton from expected goals, but that's kind of like, it's kind of a Carolina thing. Like, they have a ton of expected goals, but it's because the defensemen just bomb away. So, like, I don't mind Carolina here with Robinson. If you are playing Toronto, I don't mind Martinook, Stahl, and Carrier. But, like, really, this is a Carolina one game on the Carolina side for me. On the Washington side, this is a pretty tough matchup. If anything, I don't really want to full stack anything. It would be Dubois, McMichael, Protas at 13,400. It's just like in that range. I think I would just go a little bit cheaper for a line in a little bit better matchup. So, like, I don't think I'll be prioritizing Washington at all.
All right. I'm about.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to explain why I have interest in the Washington Capitals here tonight. It's gone kind of underreported that I've seen. Carolina has been struggling defensively for a while now. I was looking at their last 20 games. So pretty good chunk, like a quarter of the season. Over their last 20 games, the Carolina Hurricanes are 19th in the league by expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. They're worse than teams like St. Louis, Calgary, and Detroit. If you look at goals against in that stretch, they're 26th by goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 in their last 20 games. The only teams worse are Montreal, Chicago, Buffalo, San Jose, the Rangers, and the Penguins. Now, I thought to myself, well, Spencer Martin started a bunch of those games because Freddie Anderson was hurt and Pyotr Kochetkov was hurt as well. So they had to start Spencer Martin for like 6 or 7 games in a row. What has the team done since Kochetkov came back? Since Kochetkov came back, they are again 19th in the league by expected goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5, worse than Detroit, worse than Chicago. By actual goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, Carolina is 23rd in their last 7 games since Kochetkov got healthy, worse than teams like Columbus, Anaheim, and again Detroit. This is a team, whether Kochetkov has been in net or not, has been struggling defensively for a while now. The good news for Carolina is that their penalty kill has held pretty firm. It hasn't been like super outstanding elite like we have seen them, but still like top 10 in the league. So I see a team that's been struggling a lot defensively, and I see a Washington team that has gone from 2.6 to 2.8 as a team total since this morning. And I see Connor McMichael playing with Protas and Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I'm getting kind of interested. I'm not going to lie. I'm not worried about the power play correlation, like I said, because Carolina, even though they do take a fair number of penalties, they don't take a ton. And their penalty kill is still held up, even though the even strength play has fallen off quite a bit. But McMichael Dubois in protest is only 13,400. McMichael, especially with Ovechkin out, has been Washington's best forward this year. Like, if you look, it doesn't matter his line combinations. Whoever he's with, they create a ton from the slot. Him and Dubois have been very good together, even without Tom Wilson. 3.3 expected goals, 3 actual goals per 60 minutes. We mentioned on the last show that Protast has turned into a very, very good playmaker for the Caps. If you're looking for a cheap fillery type line, they're not like a true filler. Like, you can't play them with like Toronto or whatever. But if you're looking for a cheap line, I don't mind the McMichael line here from Washington. I think there's a reason why their team total has been going up despite playing what is supposed to be a good defensive team, great defensive team in Carolina, is that Carolina really hasn't been, and it hasn't mattered which goalie's in net, and that's been the case for about 6 weeks now. So I'm in on the McMichael line from Washington. On the Carolina side, it would be Aho, Jarvis, and Robinson. Like, Aho and Jarvis will probably get the most minutes. They obviously have played very well together. We mentioned that on the last show. They played well together basically since Seth Jarvis got there. Aho and Robinson so far this season together, Aho with Robinson, not Jarvis, 2.8 expected goals, 4.8 actual goals per 60. Like, Aho and Jarvis will play probably around 20 minutes. I'm not super concerned about too many of the matchups coming back from the Washington side. And Washington has been taking more penalties. Now, the Washington penalty kill has been getting a little bit worse. So if their penalty kill doesn't right itself and they take 3 or 4 penalties here tonight, they could get in trouble. So I don't mind Aho, Jarvis, and Robinson if you're looking, a little bit more expensive. But I also like the McMichael line from Washington. I think there's stuff to like on both sides here tonight.
That's a fair argument. I see player prop savant in the chat. Don't kid yourself, Jake. I know your alt accounts when I see one. It says savant. That's a dead giveaway. He says, appreciate you. I'm just kidding, by the way. Appreciate you guys. Won the shootout and forehand. I don't know what GPPs those are, but winning any GPPs is great work. You're more of a NBA and NFL guy. Yeah, I appreciate you hanging out with us and getting all the valuable information. I always marvel at the fact that what nuggets certain people take, because if I go back and pick the nuggets that everyone else takes, I'd be sipping Mai Tais on a non-extradition island. And but congrats to you.
Yeah. Congrats on the wins. That's huge. I know the shootout is the $40. So that's a pretty nice win. I'm not with you. I'm not sure what the forehand is, but either way, congrats, man. It's awesome. We love to see people win, and we had a couple winners from last night. Let's hope we can get a couple more here tonight.
Yeah. Slander Zibanejad, please, Cliffy. He's going to have plenty of opportunities right now. New York Rangers with a 2.6 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 3.4. This game is a mess. Mason Marchment got hurt in the last game. He got x-rays. They were negative. They said he's sore. He's a game time decision. The flu bug still going through Dallas. Lots of game time decisions. We don't know what's going to happen there. They called up a forward and Leanne Bichelle again. So they didn't have a forward up the last time. I guess that's a Marchment, a security blanket there. I worry about the Dallas lines here with Marchment being out. I don't know what they would do. And not only that, they lost their last game and Maverick Bourque looked awful on the top line. Now, there's no medicine that cures awful more than the New York Rangers recently, but I just don't know what these lines are going to be. You'll have an idea if Marchment's in, that Hintz and Robertson will be together, and probably Wyatt Johnson and Ben would be together. But like if Marchment is out, all bets are off. And it kind of sucks because they're an 8 p.m. Eastern start, and I have a lot of interest in Dallas. Now, the good news is, like, even if you go the most expensive route, like I think that would be Johnston, Hintz, Robertson, they're still cheaper than, or they're still right around the Minnesota 1 price. So like you have a pick of the litter for the lines of the games locking at the same time or after them. Here's the thing, like it looks like Artemi Panarin is going to be back tonight. It also looks like Lindgren's still going to be with Fox, which like that is one of the most egregious coaching mistakes you can make. Like, have you ever looked at any data? Probably not, because they shipped off Capo Caco, but I don't need to get fired up about that. I do have interest in whatever Dallas 1 is going to be. If it's Hintz, Robertson, and Johnston, Hintz, Robertson, and Bork, I have interest there. You know, like the Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere line has been fine by Rangers standards defensively, which is like almost 3 goals against, expected goals against. But like that Fox Lindgren pairing is like, Lindgren's just like a Titanic, like the iceberg in the Titanic for Fox. Like he is dragging him down so much. And then like you have Hedl with Cooley and Kreider. Like Hedl and Cooley have decent numbers together with Kakko. Like I think Kreider makes them way worse defensively. So like if Marchment's in, I have interest in that second line. And if it is Bork on the top line, I'd have interest in the Ben Johnston 2-man, because Mika Zibanejad with Brett Berard has been atrocious. So like I have interest up and down the Dallas lineup. I just don't know what the lines are going to be. On the Rangers side, I don't have too much interest at all. I guess like it would be Hedl and Cooley just because they're fairly cheap. But like, I don't know, man. Like the Rangers are a big old mess. I guess like the Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line would be fine. But like I'm not prioritizing the Rangers by any means on this slate.
Yeah, just to, you know, the point you brought up about the salaries, I think is important here, because if you do put in Johnston, Hintz, and Robertson, and for whatever reason that's not the top line here tonight, you can swap down to Anaheim 1, the Terry Vetrano Strome line, because I think they're $400 cheaper, something like that. So there is a swap to make there. And if you want to play Stankoven, Duchesne, and Marchment, which I think would be my favorite line in this game, if for whatever reason Marchment's out and you need to swap down, you can just swap down to Utah, because they're like $1,000 cheaper. Now you leave if you can't upgrade a defenseman, you'd probably leave $1,000 on the table. That always sucks. But there are swaps you can make in the later games if you do want to play Dallas here tonight. And if Marchment does play, I would have a lot of interest in that. I mean, both Dallas top 2 lines, I think, would be firmly in play. If it's Johnson on the top line and Marchment plays, I would have interest in both lines. I think it would be Dallas 2 for one of the reasons that you mentioned is like, I don't think Dallas 2 was going to see very much of Adam Fox here tonight. And listen, I like Will Borgen. He's a good defensive third pair defenseman. He's kind of like Alex Carrier in Montreal in that sense. He's still a third pair defenseman. Like they have much bigger problems than replacing, you know, Will Borgen with whoever came out of the lineup, like Mancini or whatever. Like that's just not enough to turn that entire ship around. So Duchesne, Marchment, and Stankoven have been creating a lot, but not scoring a lot. 3.1 expected goals, but only 1.3 actual goals. Now they're shooting 3.5%. Like triple that rate would be about normal for this Duchesne Marchment line, judging by what they did last year, what they did to start this year. So I do think there's a lot of positive regression to come their way. They've been playing extremely well. You get power play correlation. You're probably going to avoid Adam Fox. You're definitely going to get depth matchups in the forwards. I really like Dallas too. It's just whether or not Marchment ends up playing. I think he does. Like, I don't think he takes the optional skate today if there's a genuine concern about his health. But again, we just have to wait to see your warm-ups. I really do like Dallas too. On the Rangers side, I don't want to say I don't have interest in the Panarin line, because I do. Like this, even when the Rangers were kind of floundering, like I looked at the last 15 games. Now I know Panarin missed a couple of those, but I looked at the last 15 games for the Rangers. That Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere lines at 3.9 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Like they were still scoring. It's just everybody else wasn't, and the defense was kind of suspect, I think is understating it. But they were still scoring and they're still playing well. And I don't imagine that Rangers line is going to have a ton of ownership here tonight. We've seen Jake Ottinger get blown up a couple times this season. The flu is definitely running through that Dallas team. Like, we're still not sure if Harley or Lundqvist are going to be back. They might still be missing quite a few defensemen here tonight. We don't know how healthy everybody else is with the flu running through the team either. If I'm 20 maxing, I have some interest in that Rangers Panarin line, but in single entry, I think I have a lot more interest in Dallas here tonight. I think both Dallas top two lines, if they are what we think they are in play, but I prefer the Duchesne, Marchment, Stankoven line the best.
Yeah, until Keandre Miller is back with healthy and with Fox and Lindgren gets sent to the Galapagos Islands, like stacking against the Rangers is gonna be a thing. It was for the past month, and it's still gonna be. Igor can only do so much. I mean, he can go cry into his $11.5 million AAV contract. I feel horrible for him. Utah Soakers with a 2.8 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3.1. Going to be Marc-Andre Fleury again for the Wild. Wild going Kaprizov, Rossi, Zuccarello, Boldy, Hartman, Johansson. Utah going Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton, Genther, Cooley, McBain, Bukestad, Krause, Michelli. So, like, Minnesota one's in an interesting spot here because they're priced at $19,000. They have a 20% projected ownership, 20% top two stack, 16.8% projected ownership. They have positive leverage. I think one of the misconceptions about playing Utah is it's a good 5-on-5 matchup. It's not. Like, Utah is good defensively, even without, Sean Dursey got hurt. They have a bunch of injuries. That top line for Utah has been legitimately good for years now, both ends of the ice. Now, the spot where it is good is on the power play, and they're fully correlated. So if you aren't spending up for, Colorado, Florida, Toronto, I think Minnesota one is in a really good spot from the fact that, like, they're facing one of the worst penalty kills in the league from the sheer fact that Utah takes a ton of penalties. They just parade to the box. So, like, from that sense, like, I think in the expensive lines that are under 20,000, I guess that would be like 18 to 20K. I think Minnesota one would be my favorite. I do like Florida one and Colorado one much more. But like I said, like, as Cliffy mentioned, there aren't a ton of these spend down lines that I really like either. So, like, you'd be able to fit a lot more with Minnesota one here. So from that sense, I understand the ownership and the play. It's not a great 5-on-5 matchup. It is a very, very good power play matchup. Minnesota 2 at 13-4 at 11% ownership is a little bit tougher pill to swallow. They have been very good defensively, but they have been very low event offensively. If you want to leave Zuccarello off and add, Boldy to the top line stack, I guess that's fine for a more expensive power play stack, but I don't have a ton of interest in Minnesota 2 otherwise. The Utah side is interesting because Utah one has legitimately been great. Like, I guess you could say great. They're only 14,200. For 14,200, they've been great. 2.3% projected ownership. That Minnesota top line is their worst defensive line. They're still pretty good. But, and the one thing that I'll always mention with the Wild, their penalty kill sucks. And Schmaltz and Keller are on the top power play. The one thing that does worry me about using Utah one is Dylan Genther is really the straw that stirs the drink on the power play. So I guess you could leave off Hayton and go 3 wings, Keller, Schmaltz, Genther. That'll take you on a ridiculously unique path. But but I do like Utah 1 here. Utah 2 is a little bit tougher because that Hartman, Johansson, Boldy line has just been a meat grinder. So, like, I'm more in on Utah 1, but it's kind of like I don't want to stack Utah without Dylan Guenther just because this is an excellent power play matchup. And Genther's the guy that they kind of run the power play through. So Minnesota 1 for me, Utah 1 for me, but I would try to work Genther into my lineup.
Yeah, my favorite line in this game is Minnesota. I don't think that's a huge surprise here. That line has been really, really good this season. It's 4.3 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Also, you mentioned the line matching. I did notice, like, over the last few games, like with Eriksson Ek out, they've been using the Rossi line less in a shutdown role. Like, they've been giving it to, like, Marcus Foligno and Frederick Gaudreau and those guys. So, like, I do wonder if that Minnesota top line isn't playing against the second and third lines from Utah, which, like, those are, once you get past the top line, the matchups aren't nearly as difficult. So I really do like Minnesota 1 here. Again, they've been excellent at 5-on-5. Now, the power play has struggled for Minnesota basically all season, and almost regardless of the formation and, like, the defenseman, whether Eriksson Ek's in or not, or anything. Like, it's just not been that good. But you talk about Utah's parade to the penalty box, one of the most penalized teams in the league all season, second most penalized team in the league over the last 31 days. The only team taking more penalties actually is Montreal. So it's one of those situations where, like, Minnesota's power play doesn't have to be good tonight. They just might get enough volume to just get lucky once, right? And then you get 5-on-5 goal. Kaprizov gets his customary empty net goal, and then you're just kind of on your way. So if you don't want to pay all the way up for an expensive Florida or expensive Toronto here tonight, I do think Minnesota 1 makes a lot of sense. I think it's a fine matchup against Utah. They're the only line from Minnesota I would play. I have no interest in playing the second and third lines here. If you look at Boldy's numbers without Eriksson Ek, they've not been that good. So I do worry about him actually having a center to play with. So it's Minnesota 1. On the Utah side, I think it would be the Genther, Cooley, McBain line, just because I do worry about that shutdown matchup that Minnesota might throw at Utah. But I'm going to be honest, I do like the Utah top 6 just because Fleury is starting. Like, the difference between Fleury and Gustafsson this year is like 0.75 goals per game or per 60 minutes or something like that. If you look at goals saved above expected, it's like a full goal difference between the two goalies. I feel like I've just, kind of cornered myself into Marc-Andre Fleury having a 43 save shutout here tonight, because that's how that goes. But it is a pretty big downgrade in net for Minnesota. Like, Genther and Cooley, they have been pretty good this season at 5-on-5, 2.6 expected goals, 4.6 actual goals. Like you said, Genther kind of makes the power play go. I think I might almost be more inclined to go like Genther, Cooley, Keller than I would be to go like Keller, Schmaltz, Genther, if that makes sense. I think I'm more in on Florida 2 here, but Minnesota 1's my favorite line in the game.
Yeah. Concur. Let's get to Frostback's main event. He's not even here. He's busy waitering. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.8 total. Heading into Anaheim, the Ducks have a 2.7. I was hoping Lucas Dostal would be in net tonight. We would not be so lucky. It is Johnny Gibson. I love Johnny Gibson, but Lucas Dostal has been better by the eye test, by any advanced metric. Unsurprisingly, Colorado 1 ran the fuck over Barclay Goodrow. There's a shock. Miyu and Haas could have a positive expected goal share against Barclay Goodrow. Now, McKinnon, Lehkonen, and Nishushkin, 20,200, 27.8% top 2 stack, 22.8% projected ownership. I really do like Colorado 1 here. If you want to add in Ross Colton and take off Lehkonen, it's only $500 more. That would make it 20,700. If you add Mikko Rantanen, it's $3,900 more, and that gets to the price. That's $200 cheaper than Toronto 1. I think I would just, You can do what you want with Lehkonen. You could just straight up play the line. I think I would either leave off Lehkonen and add in Makar, or leave off Lehkonen and add in one of Colton and Rantanen. Now, as Cliffy said, I probably just locked in the Lehkonen hat trick, but that's just the way I'm thinking about building if I'm playing Colorado. I don't really want a full stack Colorado too. They're 19,000 and they just haven't played great together. Now, I'm just hoping that these are the same lines because, Bednar likes to juggle some things, and they played last night and we have no idea. The one thing, like Valery Nichushkin being back on the top power play unit at 4,800 feels like that's just unbelievably too cheap. I don't want to say he's going to be higher owned than Nathan MacKinnon, but it's going to be close. They're going to be very comparable tonight. So if you're one of those people who worry about ownership, I think you kind of just, mix and match the power play guys here because this is an excellent power play matchup. Colorado 1 for me. I think you can do some stuff with the power play guys there. I think Anaheim 1's in a pretty decent spot at 15.8, 6.9% top 2 stack, 7.4% projected ownership. Don't avoid the MacKinnon line for the most part. It is probably going to be Scott Wedgwood in that. I don't mind them. They're fully correlated. That would be the only line that I really want to play. If you're gonna play Toronto 1, I guess the Killorn line is fine or the McTavish line is fine. They're both 9,300. I really do not want to play the depth of Anaheim here tonight.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Anaheim line I would play would be the top line. They get minutes, 17.5 to 19.5 minutes of late. On the low end, you'll get Ryan Strome at 17.5. At the high end, 19.5 for Troy Terry. 3.3 expected goals, 3.2 actual goals per 60 in their time together this year. They've been pretty good at 5-on-5, even without a high shooting percentage. Their shooting percentage is basically league average, but they're actually scoring 25% more goals than the league average just because they do create so much offense. So Anaheim 1 has been legitimately good. I don't mind them here tonight. The problem is in that price range, you have Montreal, you have Carolina, you have Dallas, assuming that Marchment plays. There are lines I think I would rather play in that price range, but Anaheim 1 is perfectly fine here, but they are the only line I would play. Colorado, this isn't an easy one for me because one of the reasons why this would be a good matchup, I mean, beyond John Gibson starting, he's been fine this year. It's just that Dostal has been better. One of the reasons why you would typically like this matchup is that Anaheim's penalty kill has not been good. The thing is, if you look over the last couple years, take one guess who has by far the worst numbers against on the penalty kill amongst the Anaheim defensemen. And I'll give you a hint. He's not with the team anymore. It was Cam Fowler. If you look at the goals against on the penalty kill over the last season and a half, Cam Fowler on the ice for a goal and a half more per 60 minutes than any other Anaheim defenseman. If you look at shot attempts against, more than any other defenseman that was still with the team. It was Lyubushkin, but he was only there for half of the season. If you look at shots against, again, more than any defenseman not named Lyubushkin, who, again, was only there for half a season. It might be one of those addition by subtraction things for the Anaheim penalty kill. Now, I still don't think it'll be good. I just think it'll be better. And that does matter a little bit. But all that said, Colorado's still my favorite line. I shouldn't say my favorite line, my number 3 line on the slate here tonight. They are my favorite line outside of the big ones, Toronto and Florida. I would probably go MacKinnon, Nichushkin, and Lehkonen and leave Rantanen off. What's interesting, though, is that Middlestad and Ross Colton have scored 3.5 goals per 60 minutes together this season. Rantanen's on that line. He's also on the top power play. And once you get past the Anaheim top line, there's that third line especially is absolutely atrocious defensively. I do think the matchups get better for Colorado too, but it's Colorado 1 I like best in this game. They're my number 3 team. They're my number 3 line on the board here tonight. If you look at top stacks, top 2 stack percentage, they're the number 2 team on the board. So, yeah, I really do like Colorado, especially with John Gibson starting. I worry that it's not as good of a power play spot as it was like 10 days ago. But Colorado won very much in play. I want to get Nathan McKinnon. I want to get a stack with Nathan McKinnon in my lineup tonight. So it'll be Colorado. I think Anaheim's fine.
As Frostback comes into the show, coming to Cliffy slamming the Ducks. Wonderful. What you expect? Do you expect a basket of roses and a bottle of Clase Azul? One could wish. Let's talk about defensemen here. Top of the board, we have Cale Makar, $1,100 more than the next closest defenseman, which is Rasmus Dahlin. There's John Carlson, Miro Heiskanen, Jacob Chikrin, Mikhail Sergachev, Moritz Seider, Adam Fox, Mike Matheson. Cale Makar played 30 minutes yesterday. That game did not go to overtime. He played half the game. That's just ridiculous. I think there's, obviously Cale Makar is a great play here. I think Rasmus Dahlin is an interesting one because even if like Buffalo, their forward lines aren't great, like if Buffalo's going to hang around in this game, it would be because of Dahlin, I think. He'll probably play 24, 25 minutes tonight. Miro Heiskanen makes a lot of sense here. It's so hard to pinpoint Dallas lineups, but as long as Heiskanen is playing, he's fine. I don't particularly love anyone else in that top range. Honestly, I think after that, it would be like Ekblad and then Lane Hudson. I don't particularly love the top range.
Yeah, Cale Makar is number 1, and it's not even close. He, for both me and stochastic projections, he's raw point totals over 3 points higher than the next closest defenseman. So it's Cale Makar number 1. I feel like this is going to burn me. I don't have interest in Dahlin here tonight. The coach said they have kind of like a maintenance plan for him this weekend because this is a back-to-back. They play tomorrow. This has been a nagging injury since training camp. I do worry that maybe he only plays 21, 22 minutes, something like that. And, they're not pushing him for 27 minutes in his return. So I think I'd rather just pay up and go get Cale Makar. In the mid-price range, Miro Heiskanen, absolutely. I think Jacob Chikrin makes a nice play especially if you're playing a bunch of lineups. I might want to get Chikrin in there. Jared Spurgeon, I think, is fine. Lane Hudson at 4K. Lane Hudson has 10 points in his last 10 games. He doesn't put up a ton of peripherals, but at 4K, he doesn't really need to. So I don't mind Hudson in the mid-price range either. There are cheap defensemen I like. Obviously in the mid-price range, Heiskanen, I think, is at the top pretty easily. Given the matchup, I think he played 29 minutes or something like that the other night with all their defensemen out. So if those guys are out again, he might have to play heavy minutes again here. There are cheap defensemen I do like. Devin Taves, certainly been playing a lot of minutes, not Makar minutes, but pretty, not that far off. Esa Lindell's going to have to play minutes again, assuming they have defensemen out. Gustav Forsling is in a great matchup. If you want to go back to Aaron Ekblad and try to get his game again, good luck. Jackson Lacombe from Anaheim, he just keeps doing it. I'll just keep playing him. Ben Sherratt with Evanson out. Now, Evanson got hurt in that game. So, that changes things when you only have 5 defensemen, but Ben Sherratt played 29 minutes in that game. I don't think he's going to play 29 minutes here tonight, but he had been playing 21 minutes pretty regularly. He might have to play 22, 23. So don't mind Ben Sherratt. If you want to pay all the way down, I think the 3 guys are Nico Mikkola, Martin Ferraberry, and Alex Carrier. Carrier, I do believe, is mid-price in his first game for Montreal.
Yeah. Frostback still here. I think Trouba's fine. His minutes have been going up, and in his last 4 games, he has 18 block shots.
Yeah, he's going to have to block a lot of shots here tonight.
Yeah. Jacob Trouba. What a legend. Rangers, a legend. Let's talk about some goalies here. I don't really like any of the options spending up. Like it's between Wedgwood, Bobrovsky, Ottinger, Talbot, and Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't particularly love any of them. I guess it would be Jake Ottinger. Like Talbot's fine. I don't really like that range. I think Vejmelka at 7,500 is more my cup of tea. Igor Shesterkin at 7,300. Like, listen, there's a good chance that Igor Shesterkin doesn't put up great DK points tonight, but like he has the ability to steal games for the Rangers despite them being atrocious defensively. So in GPPs at 7,300, you can take a chance. Montembeault at 7,200 interests me. That's really about as low as I'd go. I don't particularly love going below that because then you're in the Buffalo goalie against Toronto. You have either of the St. Louis guys going against Florida and Gibson against Colorado. That's just scary. So I don't think I'd go below Montembeault.
Yeah, I don't mind Ottinger here tonight. Sorry, Rangers just haven't been doing it for quite a while now. Sergei Bobrovsky is the highest projected goalie on the board here tonight. That really concerns me. I get it because of the matchup, but it still concerns me. I don't mind Cam Talbot. With Evanson out, I think Talbot might see a fair number of shots here tonight. And it's not like, Montreal has put up goals, like they just put up 6 on Buffalo or whatever the other night. But, as long as Line A doesn't shoot 100%, I think Talbot could have a decent game. Logan Thompson, I think he's 7,600, makes a lot of sense for me from Washington. If I'm paying down, I'm probably going to Montembeault. Also, I think Karl Vejmelka at 7,500 makes sense too. He's been really good this year. Minnesota's power play has really struggled. So it's not necessarily, even though Utah takes a ton of penalties, he might not get blown up on the power play. And if they can just leave it to all 5-on-5, I think he could have a good night. So I don't mind. I think for me, the 4 goalies or the 5 goalies I'm looking at are Ottinger, Talbot, Thompson, Vejmelka, and Montembeault, going from most expensive to least.
Yeah, I always forget about Logan Thompson because I always look for Charlie Lindgren, but Logan Thompson has legitimately been good this year. He's going to, I like his interviews. He just trashes Vegas, and we love to see that. We will be back tomorrow, normal time. A note, this coming Monday, the 23rd, we will be on at 10 a.m. Eastern. We have some traveling to do between us, so we didn't want to cancel the show. We also didn't want to have to do it from satellite locations with spotty internet. So we will be here 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll try to give you the best news possible. So just keep that in mind. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Swaggy Verhaeghe.
Do like Swaggy. I don't like when the Florida beat writers drool about Carter Verhaeghe. It makes me angry. But a lot of things make me angry these days. I am going to go. I don't want to cop out and just go with my one of our sons that we share together with an equal. The judge gave us shared time. I guess I'm going to go with him, Valery Nichushkin.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, we really do like Colorado here tonight. What can we say?
He's criminally underpriced, which is a problem. Yep, we'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. Good luck on this 7-game slate. Almost 350 of you hanging out with us on a Friday afternoon. You lovely human beings rock. Good luck, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Good luck tonight, everybody.